Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Corey Cudney, and I am just an editor. But today I have with me somebody who is more than just an editor. He's got tons of shorts on his credit, tons of TV shows that you definitely know, like Doctor Who and His Dark Materials, which actually just had its season finale. We have the editor for that here, Mr. David Fisher.
Hey Corey, how's it going? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, hanging in there. How about yourself?
Good. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. I've had a few months off because of everything that's going on in the world, but I start a new job in January, so that's good. Good. I'm ready to go.
Nice. Yeah, that's good to hear. I want to start like right off the top at what I just mentioned. You've had tons of TV credits to your name and everything. Do you still you edited the Asa Hetra episode of His Dark Materials that just aired last night? Do you still on things like season finales, do you sit down and watch them? Are you I gotta check this out, or are you I've seen this way too much already, I don't need to watch it again?
No, I think I do. I geek out on not on my own work, because that sounds really narcissistic, but I do really like watching it back, because I think the beauty is as well as an offline editor, and with something like His Dark Materials, you don't see all of the VFX. You don't get to see the grade, and you don't get to hear the mix. So when it goes out, that is like the final thing. So excuse me. So I tune in just for that. It's always a buzz seeing your name, and seeing your credit. And I've always been obsessed with IMDb since I was a lot younger and trying to get into the industry. So it's just, I don't know, I still geek out on things like that. I really love it.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So last night I was driving my girlfriend crazy, because I was like, we've got to watch it, and just to make sure my name's still on there, because I worked for about a year and a half on it. So it's one of those things. But yeah, no, it was great. We watched it. So we watched it last night on BBC across here, and I think HBO is like a week behind in the States. But yeah, so I think tonight will be, because I edited of the second series. I edited the first episode and the last two, so 1, 6, and 7. So yeah, six goes out tonight in America. But yeah, so to answer your question, it is, I still watch my own work, not just for narcissistic reasons, but just to kind of go, oh my god, that visual effects looks amazing, or the grade looks really nice in that scene. So I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know if I should give spoilers, because I guess when your episode goes out, everyone will either have seen it or still never heard of it. But there's a little cameo at the end of the show, and it was just nice to see that in a kind of finished VFX, because when they shot that, it was in lockdown across here.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so so they were due to shoot an extra episode of His Dark Materials. It was kind of it was at the end of the shooting schedule, and it was cast availability. But then the pandemic happened, the lockdown happened, and it was the right decision to kind of shut down and just make it a consolidated 7 episodes this series instead of 8, because it was 8 last year.
Yeah.
So then it was kind of right, we still want to shoot this cameo at the end. I'm not sure if I should say who it is or not. I mean, I guess it's going to be out, right? Can I say it?
Yeah, you're good to say.
Okay, it's James McAvoy. James McAvoy, obviously a big character in the first series, but goes across into a different world at the end of the first series. And it's kind of that thing, viewers have been is he going to turn up? Is he not? And, the plan was for a standalone episode. It was a very good script, and they were going to shoot it, but then they couldn't. So, but it was still kind of an idea that they were going to do this cameo at the end of the second series. So that was the thing. It was lockdown happened, and we kind of all went our separate ways, and took our drives and finished the episodes off in lockdown with the execs over Zoom, and all these things that I'd never really used before. Zoom. What else? I can't remember now. Google Hangouts. Everything.
Yes. Yep. Hangouts.
Yeah. Exactly. So we just kind of used all the technology. And yeah, I guess a lot of people did. And so we locked our episodes in lockdown and finished them. And yeah, and then this I think it was just a day shoot with James McAvoy across green screen, and then it was at the end of the episode of episode 7. So yeah, it was cool.
Oh, very wow. Cool. So you mentioned a little bit early on that when you left the episode, the mix hadn't been done and the VFX hadn't been finalized. So what does the episode look like when you pass it off? Is it just the flow of the episodes down with the VO on there?
Yeah, so part of my process would be to put on temp sound effects or temp music, because with a returning show like His Dark Materials Series 2, we had a lot of Lorne Balfe's cues, the composer who did Series 1. So we had like a bank of his music that we kind of temped with, so it's kind of in the same themes of Lyra, the main character, or things like Asriel when he popped up and things like that. So we kind of, as my part of the process is obviously to assemble and just temp sound effects, temp music. And so when we've left it, because I was obviously on it from start to finish, we kind of lock the episodes in order as well. So since I was doing the first episode and the last two, I was kind of around while the other editors were finishing their episodes in the middle. So as a result, I do actually get some temp VFX come back. When on His Dark Materials, like Lyra's they've got demons and what have you in the show. So you'd have like a puppet pass. So you'd have a little pantomime ermine, or in this series is a red panda, and on set it'd be a puppeteer. So they would do a setup, a take with a puppet pass where the actor Daphne would act with a puppet, and then the next pass of the slate of the scene would be without a puppet, and you kind of use the puppet pass to comp in as a rough kind of placeholder for where then the VFX would be. So the beauty of me being on it from the first block and the last block, the first and last episodes, was I got to get temps back as they were getting temped by well, first of all, it was Paint and Practice, who were like the on-set not visionaries, but they were kind of like temping up the previs and things like that. So you get an idea for kind of the look of the worlds, and also obviously being a returning series, you already knew what Pan was going to look like. But then Framestore, who do the VFX, they would then do their pass and would get temps back, not just temps, but we would start getting versions back as well. So I kind of, when I finished it, it was kind of, it had some shots of demons in it, and it would have some kind of things like that, but it's like long from finished. So as I say, watching it back last night, I was just like, it's just
it's like totally different.
Yeah, exactly. You go from being a bit silly, going like looking at people running around with puppets, going, this is never going to work. You look and you go, God, I was an idiot. It's brilliant. It's like that, really.
So how well did you guys transition to working from home? Like, I know me at a video game studio here in Austin, it's like, we deliver a lot of things through Google Drive now. And we, like you mentioned earlier, we have a lot of Zoom hangouts where we like review things. Yep. And so how does that work for you guys at a much larger scale than me just, making a little internal video?
It's probably very similar, to be honest. It was, because I'm trying to think, the next job I'm doing, I will be assembling from home. But then when it comes to the fine cut, I will still hopefully, depending on what's going on with the government and lockdown rules, I will go into a cutting room with a director and sit alongside them at a safe distance and get through it. But in terms of how things were finished with His Dark Materials, it was relatively painless and very relatively smooth, the transition, because I think we were kind of at a stage where our showrunner Jane Tranter, who's also the exec producer of the showrunner, she had already seen the cuts of the episodes, so we're already getting to that stage where they're getting ready to send to BBC and HBO for notes and things like that. We'd already fine cut them, and so it was just I don't know. It was quite painless. Really,
nice.
Yeah,
well, that's always good to hear.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a good transition because as an editor, we can work from wherever, really.
Yeah.
As long as you've got a setup and you can get your hands on because I don't know your background, but we cut on Avid Media Composer. So yeah, it's just a case of, if you've got the media and you've got a drive and you've got an Avid at wherever you are, then you can do it. So, and I've got a cutting room at my house because nice. since I started out, it's been I've makeshift PC, which I've then over the jobs and saving the money and working hard, you can finally buy something and what have you. So I do have a little cutting room in my spare room. So yeah.
And how do you personally, how did you transfer to working from home? Like, was it an easy process for you personally? Or like, I know for me personally, it's like, I'll cut for a little bit and I definitely find myself like being like, okay, well, I'll just walk to the kitchen. Like, I'll just do this a little bit. Like,
I think, but that's also the beauty of it, because you can take those breaks and I think being an editor can be a very solitary job, can't it? Anyway, you kind of encapsulated, and you can't always just go and chat to people because you're in the zone or whatever. So I don't know. It sounds really sad, but I've done a lot of, as you've mentioned earlier, I've done a lot of short films and things like that from home. So I'm quite used to working like on my own, and working from home before everyone worked from home type thing. When I was trying to get that break, I was doing 3 or 4 projects at the same time. After hours, I was working as an assistant, and I'd come home and to my little bed, at the time my bedroom, which would have an edit in it, an Avid, and I'd edit these 4 different projects at home. So no, I'm quite used to it, to be honest. So it's not really new for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
So that's actually a perfect jumping on point. Normally, when I start these podcasts, I always like to go all the way back and just hear, how did you get into editing? What was your big inspirations? Like, what got you into editing?
Well, I mean, like way back, it's obviously just the amazement of cinema and films and movies and things like that from when I was a kid. That was kind of like the jumping off point. It was just, going to the video store and video shop and renting VHS and just being obsessed with like artwork of videos and just back in the day when we used to rent, it would have like the little sticker saying out on loan or whatever, just being obsessed with the little details of things like that. And like my experiences of VHS shops was a local petrol station, gas station, where my dad knew the owner, and we'd go there as kids and just rent VHS and things like that. So that was that. And then going to the cinema as a kid, like the first movie I saw that I remember was The Princess Bride. I was
awesome.
5. Yeah, and it was like 1987, I think it was 1987. So I was 5. So that's like my like earliest memory of the cinema.
Nice.
But so that was that anyway. And then you go to school, and I'm from like the northeast of England, like a city called Newcastle, and it's not a big thriving metropolis for the industry for TV. So it was like at school, there was never that incentive to get into media. I mean, as far as I remember anyway, I really wanted to get into media. It was like a dream of mine to like work in, TV or film really. And TV, and like the careers advisors were like, yeah, well, it's never going to happen because there is no industry up here. But like, that's the thing. People don't think, he could probably travel. He could, if he gets old enough and gets enough experience, he could probably go to London, or he could go, to the next. And I think London was the big jumping off. Like that's where TV was. But anyway, so I'm trying to cut through it, so I'm not rambling. But I then went to do a computing course at university because I was just like, I just don't know what I want to do in the real world, because I've honestly had like a desire for TV and film. So I did a computing course, an HND degree, and the whole time I was just writing short stories and scripts and things like that, just being like, oh God, this is so much more interesting than a computing job. Like I absolutely love computers because that's also like, I found it very easy to build a computer and then get the software and edit and things like that. That was also my background because my dad's quite techie. So he like taught me what he knew and what have you. But then I finished my degree, and a friend of mine was like, oh, I'm going to apply for this college course for a media production course. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll come along. I'll try and get on that course, thinking again, like, this is not going to happen. And so I did. I got on the course. Unfortunately, my friend didn't, but I did, and which I feel terrible about. But anyway, I got on it, and I was like, that was it. I was getting to play with cameras and like just, do setups. But basically, to get to the point, editing was the big thing. That's where I kind of gravitated towards, my... Like people on the course would shoot material, and I'd be like, "Oh, can I edit? And that was just the thing I just loved. And I don't know if it was because the cliche, they were off on like rainy shoots. It's bucketing down with rain, and I'm sitting in a nice warm edit suite.
Yeah,
it's like
plug it away.
Yeah, like I mean, that wasn't the sole reason for it, but I was a bit like, it's pretty cool though.
Yeah,
this nice warm room while people give me material to edit. But that's not really the reason for it. But it was just like the marriage of like sound and music and picture and storytelling. It was just a massive draw for me. But that's so that's where I really realized I wanted to be an editor. It came from that love of like film, and then finally getting on a course, and then after that it was hard getting a job, but like I was on the way anyway. But it worked out in the end.
Yeah. So coming out of that course, Did you go straight into shorts? I did all my little homework and hitting up that IMDb and everything, and it definitely looks like a lot of your early career is like mostly filled with those shorts. So how long did it take you to kind of get into those, and what did those kind of feel like, I guess, coming out of that course?
Yeah, well, the course actually, I graduated in 2005. I graduated, and but prior to that, when I was on the course, I was building up a kind of idea of shooting my own short films. So I don't think they'll be on IMDb, but
got you.
With friends, we got like a mini DV camera. And I was like heavily influenced by Sam Raimi, The Evil Dead, and things like that. So like my first short film was in 2003 for part of the college course, and it was shot like Sam Raimi, like running around with the camera. And then I think we may have like ripped some of the sound effects just to kind of give it that feel. And I think it was like using old cliche, like I think it was curiosity killed the cat was the thing. So it was like an old, like, it's not a proverb, but an old cliche. It's not a proverb, but anyway, an old saying, curiosity killed the cat. We shot this short film, and like a friend of mine was just outside my house, and he saw something, and he got dragged in, and then he got killed. It was horror orientated, and and it was that. And so we were shooting short films when we could, and we ended up like doing wedding videos and things like that. So that was way before. That was still when I was on the college course as well. I was doing that, but then I graduated, and obviously, as I was saying, the Northeast wasn't massive for work. But a friend of mine from the course, he managed to get a job somewhere as an assistant editor, and he said, "Oh, there's this drama in the Northeast, like the one drama shooting in the Northeast is looking for an assistant editor." So I was like, God, I'd absolutely love to try and get on that. So I got the interview, and I got the job.
Nice.
But getting on the job and being like, hey, so I've never assisted before, and I've never really used Avid Media Composer. And they were like, yeah, you don't know what you're doing. but so within a week, I got fired from the job, which absolutely sucked. But the absolute massive positive was that the exec producer of the show, and who owned the company as well, Sandra Joblin, her name, just to give her a shout out because she's amazing. She called my house at the time, because I did have a mobile, but this is a long time ago, and left a voicemail being like, "Oh, I just found out what happened, David, and you're an absolutely lovely guy, and I can tell you're very keen to get on in the industry. So please come back. We'll take you on as a trainee, and bring you back." And I was at the point, I was like, "No, that's it. I'm done. They don't want me." And my dad was like, "Don't be an idiot. This is your dream, that you want to be in this industry, and this is like the one job. Go in. You should get on it." So I went back, and I got trained up as an assistant editor. And just within about 4 months. Well, it was a lot sooner than that, but about 4 months down the line, the assistant editor had to leave because it was the end of the shoot, and I stayed on for the last month as an assistant editor. So I kind of was trained and learned to be an assistant editor. But like the show was it shot for 5 months, and across, I don't know if you've got blocks across there, but basically there was 4 blocks, which is 4 episodes of the show. And you've got 4 directors and 4 editors, and basically when block 1 finishes shooting, it goes into fine cut, and block 2 starts filming with obviously a new director, new editor, but in a new DOP. But then the rest of the crew stays the same. So the production office is the same, the camera department's the same, and things like that. So it constantly keeps ticking over. And and then after that job, again, as I say, there was no work in the Northeast, so I kind of went back to doing data entry. So I went back to that, and then it was every year. And then 2007, the line producer, I think, called me and was like, "So, are you going to come back and be an assistant?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." But it was like, I make it sound so like idyllic and perfect, but it was hard work, because as in, there was no other jobs, and I didn't know how to get work and what have you. So in the meantime, I was just shooting short films, being like, God, is this enough? Like, how do you get that break? And I obviously did get that break as a trainee and then assistant. But then it was basically off the back of that, I just got a few more jobs with that production company. So there was lulls between contracts and between their productions where I would do data entry or would do anything like that just to keep some money coming in. And then basically what I didn't really realize, as I was assisting multiple editors who obviously I was doing a good job at that point and not getting fired. So that I was getting repeat business. So I was building up that contact list to work with other editors as an assistant. And eventually that production company had a production move to London to Fine Cut, and then that was kind of that was my ideal time to move to London and build and then basically start again, trying to get work and build up. But that's how my path as an assistant editor got me to London, and then it was a very long process. But I then stepped up to editing eventually. a long I think 8 years I think it took as an assistant before I stepped up or something like that. Yeah.
So that was actually a conversation that I just had with another guest on the podcast. Was for you personally, what was your quest, I guess, for lack of a better term, like going from assistant to like just full on editor? Because that was something we touched on of, if you're a really good assistant editor, a lot of editors don't want to move you up, because if you're a really good assistant editor, they need a really good assistant. So
it's so true. That was someone give me that, like, it's not advice at all. It's bad advice, but just went, the problem is you're a really good assistant, so you're not going to step up. I was like, oh, well, so I'm supposed to be a rubbish assistant. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So no, it was a very long, hard process, and it was just a lot of perseverance, just a lot of like, as you've noticed, cutting short films for people, doing music videos, show reels, doing like recaps and teaser trailers for the program that you were working on. So I would always be like, not just assistant, but like, can I edit the recap? Can I edit the trailer? And things like that. So it's just building up that show reel, and it is really about. Well, it was really. I worked on a job, Mr. Selfridge, which had Jeremy Piven in it, for ITV, cool. And I think Masterpiece in America, but it was kind of like a Downton Abbey type thing, and it was about Selfridge's, the shop in London. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was that, and I worked on the first series as an assistant editor, but at this point I was very much like trying to get assembly editor jobs. I think. On Selfridge, I went away and did an assembly editor job, just anything to kind of like go, right, this is an editing credit now, it's not just assistant editor.
Yeah.
And it was, I think that was the job when I was doing 4 different short films or promos or music videos on the side, and I was also assisting. And then,
oh man,
yeah, and then it didn't happen on the first series of Mr. Selfridge, but then it was like, right, we want you to come back because you're part of the team, and like a lot of people changed from series 1 into series 2. I think a couple of directors came back, but the production office changed, and it was kind of like, well, post-production, David, he was the guy who set the cutting rooms up. He was overseeing four cutting rooms as an assistant editor, and he had a second assistant, and, would you come back for the second series? And I was just like, I will come back, but I just want to say, I really want to cut an episode. Like I'm really at that point now where like, I can't get a job as an editor, even though I kept, I would be getting offered assistant editing jobs, and I'd be like, no, but I'll edit, and they were like, no, we're not offering you an editing job, we're offering you an assistant job, and I'm like, okay. So it's again, I think hopefully that proves perseverance is key.
Yeah.
And it was, and luckily it was that series. An editor came to edit a block, and I'd assisted her a few times. Liana, her name's Liana Del Giudice, Italian, London person, and she came on, and I just said to her, I was like, Liana, you've been offered 3 episodes in your block. I was like, please, if there's any chance. And she went into the interview, and she was like, yeah, I'd love to come and edit Mr. Selfridge as long as David edits an episode.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that, but thank you so much. And she was like, I know how hard you've worked. I know you are working. So, it's about time. And the director, he'd edited a block before, so he'd already done Mr. Selfridge, and he was like, oh, David, yeah, absolutely. And I can see how hard working he is as an assistant, then absolutely, why not? Let's see if we can make this work. And it was backed by the producers and ITV and the production company and the network type thing. And then that was it. I still assisted, but on days where scenes came in from my episode, I would I'd edit those, assemble those, and then I'd go back to assistant. And I had a second assistant, Tom, as well, who would be there to look after the other, because there would have been free editors at the time, because it would have been 3 blocks, in different processes, fine cutting or shooting and what have you. And and that was it. And it went down really well. Like Liana was there kind of as a mentor, but like I kind of had it, I had it at that point. I didn't really need mentoring, but it was good to know that I had like the support network there for it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't need it. Which is not to be big headed, but anyway, but no, and and then that was it. And then it was, again, as I've said, it was about perseverance. I'd got that 1 credit, but the tricky thing is it hasn't broadcast anywhere, so no one's seen it yet. So it's not like you can, on paper, you're an editor, but like people still want to have that valid, like that reassurance by watching what you've done.
Yeah.
So again, I think then I went back to editing like a pilot for somebody, and like, through word of mouth, through Facebook and things like that, people were like seeing, and I was popping up saying like, I'm an editor, I feel like I can finally call myself that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like people were going, okay, well then here's some editing work. And then I got onto another long running TV program in England called Holby City, which is a medical long running show. And that was, again, that was through the director I worked with on Mr. Selfridge, put a word in kind of thing and said, this guy's, knows what he's doing. And then it was just, that was it really. I kind of managed to get from job to job. I never went back to assistant, because obviously, you do hear about some assistant editors who get that break and then have to go back to assistant for a bit to, pay the bills and what have you. But I was managing to not at that point. So yeah, then that was it. And then it was about getting representation, getting an agent, and yeah, that was kind of how it started and how it kept going.
Nice. Awesome. So for series like these, what is, and I guess it would probably depend per series, but what kind of timeline are you looking at for, like, you guys finish an episode where you have that editor credit? How long before that does air normally?
God, I'm trying to remember now, because I can only really remember the last thing I worked on, which was His Dark Materials, and I finished in July of this year, July 2020, and it's just and it's, when did it first transmit? Oh God, it would have been was it November? I kind of feel like I need to check right now. I'm not clicking on IMDb.
So while you're doing that, also, just a random, just a random question for that. What does, on really any of these series, what does an AE look like versus a full-on editor? For assistant, is it, you're mainly just bringing in dailies and cutting selects out of those for the editor to actually piece together on the timeline?
Yeah, well, I think like from my experience, it is mainly about, when I first started, it was about logging and digitizing the material. So you would, I'll try and modernize it a little bit more, but like nowadays it is, the assistant editor works so hard, and especially, all the assistant editors I've worked with work so hard, but like His Dark Materials, there's 3 assistant editors, Haley, Ben and Craig, and they, on the second series, we kind of broke it down to an assistant per editor, because we had 3 editors, and at the start of the day, it is about getting the rushes in from the lab, because on His Dark Materials we had a DIT on set who would back up the rushes from the camera cards, and then they would get sent to a lab which was technical, which would transcode the rushes, and then the rushes would be sent to the cutting room, which is where the assistant editor gets it. So the assistant editor would get the Avid media, which is MXS files, video files, and they would transfer those over and bring them into Avid, but also import the sound. So the assistant editor on that job, for example, would sync the rushes and then break them down into scene bins for the editor.
Got you.
As well as organising the paperwork. You've got scenes for that day, so you'd have the marked up script and the continuity sheets for that scene that's been shot, and then they would give them to the editor, and the editor would cut. And then, His Dark Materials is very demanding at the post-production department, but assistant editors also, track lay sound for the editors. They, as I mentioned, from my experience, cut recaps and teasers, just work really hard. Basically work very hard. So that's that, and I'm just trying to think. They work. I'm probably doing them a disservice to be like, we work even harder than that, and you're forgetting what we do. But they worked very, very hard.
Yeah, before when you were talking about doing all of those shorts and doing the assistant editor gig, I was just while you were talking, I was like, man, he must have been exhausted. Like I know how it feels to a fraction, and just to multiply that, it's like, oh man, like.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but also that's the thing. If you're passionate and you want to get there, you've got to work, haven't you? You've got to work hard for it. So hopefully that comes. Hopefully, but that's the thing as well. As I'm going down memory lane right now, it's like you forget because I think I'm where I want to be now as an editor,
Nice.
and it's like you kind of go, God, yeah, I worked really hard.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like I didn't sleep. I remember like the computer was on in the room and it was buzzing away doing exports, and I'm trying to sleep. Things like that. But but also, I did those things as an assistant editor as well. I used to sleep in the cutting room because it was easier than going home. Because I was there for like when they started shooting on red camera and the Alexa eventually put red camera, and you had to transcode in different software, and it was so clunky, and it would just be like an overnight type thing. And I was like sleeping at Pinewood Studios on a sofa, and it was for Liana, the editor I mentioned earlier, and she'd come in the morning, and I've got to like try and look fresh face and be her assistant. And I was like, I've slept here. There could be ghosts. This place could be haunted. It's like, I'm terrified. I'm knackered. I'm so tired. But yeah, to answer your question about when does it air, so I finished in July and it aired in November. So August,
nice.
September, October. So it's about 4 months. It just depends on the level, because obviously His Dark Materials is very VFX heavy program. So that does factor into the turnaround time. But I've worked on like Mr. Selfridge, which was a period drama, and I really can't remember. I mean, if I look through dates, I could figure it out eventually. But like I finished that, and maybe it's about a month or 2 months. So I've had things when I finished them air really quickly after I finished them, but some things take a while. It just depends on when the air dates are as well, because it can hold on to things for quite some time. It just depends, really.
Got you. Yeah. So out of this like stretch that you hit before, it looks like, if I've got my dates right, this stretch of shows that you've got before the Doctor Who hit, what would you say probably like the highlight of these? Because you've got like, just looking at the list, you've got like the No Offense, Shetland, Vera, Grantchester, Mr. Selfridge, stuff like that. Like what are some highlights from that period of like 2014 to 18 is what that looks like?
I worked very hard. That's the thing. It's like that. I think that answers your question as well. Really, that kind of shows the turnaround time, because those shows, not being very heavy VFX, I did go from job to job to job, luckily, and they were, because there were a lot of crime dramas there, and they're very practical. Like the biggest CGI thing for those is like computer screen replacement for like CCTV footage or things like that. So they're not very demanding in that respect. So I think I'm trying to think, like, because also with like Vera, it's filmed in my like hometown, but I edited that in London, so it was nice seeing home, in the shooting in the countryside and things like that. But it was edited in London, so I think also with that, like the experiences, not just like the job's amazing, but also like I did a show called AD, The Bible Continues, and it was 2014, I think, but it aired in 2015, and that was shot in Morocco.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I got to go to Morocco for the shoot and assemble. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was amazing, and just assemble in a hotel room, or well, actually it was part of the hotel, and then come back to London for the fine cut, but just things like that. And then I've another job. Like Shetland that you mentioned, that was filmed in Scotland, so closer to home for me, so I could go see my parents or my friends on the weekend. But then be in Scotland, and again, I've got to like mention the assistant editor on Shetland, Rachel Erskine. She's absolutely brilliant, and again, very hardworking. But she'd kill me if I didn't mention her name. She's great. So, but yeah. So that's the other like lovely thing, as you mentioned before. Not just working from home, but we can travel around as editors as well. And it's very versatile in that respect. It just depends, what your situation is. But I'm pretty free to move around. So yeah.
Yeah. How often do you find that shows would bring you on location? Like you mentioned, going to Morocco, and like did you ever get to go on set for Dark Materials?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was filmed in Wales, in Cardiff, and I was kind of already around because we did Doctor Who, which is also filmed in Wales and Cardiff as well. So they've got a great lot of stuff going on in Wales, like a lot of different productions at the moment. They're getting ready for stuff, and in the past as well. But for the second series of his Dark Materials, before we went into lockdown, we were right beside the sets. So we were in the there was an old, I believe it was an old warehouse conversion, but it very much, it feels like a film studios now, Bad Wolf Studios. And we were right beside the sets, so you could go down and see like Lin-Manuel in a balloon with rain lashing down and things like that, which is like, I mean, I'm kind of, I think it was Walter Murch who said like he doesn't go to set, he doesn't visit set, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to be like Walter. I'm going to stay in my little comfortable room, which I think drives some directors crazy because they're like, come down, and I'm like, I absolutely love movie making, but I'm like, yeah, but I'm busy. but then I think when the set is so close to where you are, you've got no real excuse not to go. And the sets are amazing on his Dark Materials. Like in the second series, they go to a different world, and they go to Chittagazzi, and they built that. It's like a massive town square. It's absolutely huge and absolutely amazing. And we were like, you know, when you want to get out of the cutting room and stretch your legs, you'd go, instead of, you know, as you mentioned, like just going to the fridge or something like that, we'd go to Chittagazzi for a little bit and walk around there.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I know, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, my you know, it's very idyllic. It's absolutely amazing. But so that's what we would do. But it is just amazing to be so close to those sets and have a look around.
Yeah, that is fantastic of just like walk and be like, I'm just gonna go walk around the set today. Like that's super cool. I did notice for season 2 of his Dark Materials, the aspect ratio changed. It went from like 16:9 to like I saw someone online said it was 1:7:8. I don't know if it's like that or 2:3:5.
It's 2:1.
2:1. Okay.
2:1. Yeah.
Do you know like what drove that decision to change ratios between seasons?
I remember Jamie, the director, Jamie Charles, and I were both like, it would look great 2:1.
Yeah,
but I don't think it was us. But I think I remember HBO being in a production meeting. We were like, we should say something. Just be like, we should say something. But I don't think it was us at all. But I think you know, Jamie and the DOP, David Higgs, they probably pushed for 2:1. Because I'm trying to think. It didn't. I think we were messing around on series 1 because Jamie directed, and I edited the last 2 episodes of series 1, and I think we used to throw the 2:1 mask on just for a laugh. I mean, I think even when we like worked together first of all on Vero, we used to put 2-3-5 to 1 just to like make it look really cinematic. and then we were both like, yeah, we'll never get away with this on like TV. But then a lot of things, you know, like obviously Netflix has a lot of stuff at 2:1, but we were still a bit like, you know, we're not sure, but you know, we were not sure because of the BBC. But the thing is, the BBC have got a lot of stuff at 2:1 now, and they might even go. They probably go even further with it. I don't think 2-3-5 to 1, but yeah, it was kind of just a stylistic thing, and it's crazy, isn't it, that your TVs get bigger, but then you want to start putting bits of black on the top and bottom to make the picture smaller because you're like, oh, it's too much screen. I want less, you know?
It's such a good call because like even getting away from editing, it's like season 2 just looks like a lot more, I don't know necessarily the adjective to use, but like defined, I guess is a good, it's got really good cinematography in the season 2 of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned on season 1 doing the last 2 episodes, and then on season 2 you did the last 2, the last 2 in the first one. And I noticed the same trend with Doctor Who that you edited the first one. So is there somebody out there who's like specifically calling like, we got to get David to set the tone for this season?
I don't think so, but it is very true. Like you know, like even Shetland, the crime drama, we did the first 3 episodes of that. It was fair enough. It was only 6 and it was like 2 blocks of 3 episodes. But yeah, I've noticed that as well.
It's super interesting because these are like major beats that you're getting to pick. So it's like super cool. It's like you don't have to worry about any of the filler in the middle. It's like every episode that you're cutting is like major story beats.
Yeah, no, no, I have noticed it. I don't know. I think I don't know if it's luck or what, but maybe it's, it's a very good. It's a very good observation. But I've observed it as well. I'm just looking now. You're right. I've got nothing to say to that. I don't know. I just think it's very, very lucky, and it's very. As you say, you've said it. To be honest, it is in a very good place. It's very fortunate because you're either kicking it off or you're wrapping it up. So, sometimes when you're kicking a series off, you don't always get all the juicy plot points because it's like you are doing a lot of setup. I mean, the beauty of Doctor Who is every episode is pretty much standalone. So there is sometimes there is a through line through the entire thing, which will get capped off at the end. But like with Doctor Who, for example, it was like we were doing the first episode with Jodie Whittaker, the new Doctor at the time, the first female Doctor as well. And we were just it was like a standalone story. We did, because going back to the block system, we did 2 episodes per block, and then it's just a result of Jamie being very good at directing and being very good that he was asked to go back and I was asked to go back as well. It's we are a team in that respect, but it was just it was just, I don't know. very, very, very lucky, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool thing to have for Doctor Who, which you brought up. Was there any, like you said, Jodie Whittaker's first episode, first female Doctor, new Doctor? Is there any added pressure editing those first episodes, especially for Doctor Who, but really in general, editing like a first episode of a season? Because you like I mentioned earlier, you really are like setting the series off on its own feet, I guess.
Yeah, I think. I mean, like with Doctor Who, it obviously is a returning franchise, I guess you'd call it. It's a returning show, but there was that added pressure of it's Jodie Whittaker's first time as the Doctor. So, and it was a new showrunner as well, Chris Chibnall, who still is the showrunner, but it was his first. He's written on the show before, but it was his first time as the showrunner. So there was that level of not really pressure, but just like all eyes on that kind of thing. And you are right, because I think not to move on to the next thing, but I did like a crime drama after that called The Bay for ITV again, which was it was after Doctor Who, and that was kicking off a new show, like a brand new police detective which no one had seen before, a new world and all that kind of stuff. So that was the stakes were like kind of high on that, but still similarly on Doctor Who as well. They were, but it is just about that world building of something new and just defining the tone of things as well. Because as I've said, for an example, like from an editing point of view, you're kind of coming up with the sound of the music because you're temping it with other people's soundtracks from different movies and TV programs and things like that. You haven't got what the sound of that show is yet, and you're kind of finding that with the director. And and the composer was on board. Sam Sim was the composer, and he on The Bay, and he came on board quite early on. Obviously, he was, found, and he would come into the cutting room and listen to what we temped with. And I went a bit outrageous with like there was a police chase, and I think I probably put like Born Supremacy on it or something like that. And it was like everyone's like, yeah, we know what you're trying to do, David, but like we're probably not going to score it like that. You're going really big.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I've gone way too big with that. And and then you watch it go out, as I say, because I'm not really there for the mix or anything like that. So you go out on TV, or and then you go, oh yeah, it's so sedate, not sedate. It's not the right word, but it's a lot. It's not like hitting you in the face with the music, because rightfully so. The picture and the action and the cutting is doing that for you. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to score it big as well. So that's kind of the challenges I find with cutting a brand new show. And the next thing I'm going to be working on to hit the trend again, I'm doing the last 3 episodes of that.
Nice.
of the first series. I know, God. And then the thing I might be doing after that is the first. Well, it's 4 episodes, but I'll be doing the first episode. So yeah, just go back to what you've said. Anyway, so again, it's like it's finding the vibe of that. But the same thing with Doctor Who though. We did kind of, Jamie was reinventing it a little bit, bringing in that kind of Stranger Things, and they shot that anamorphic, and it went out at I think that went out at 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
It did go out 2-1, and that we scored with like John Williams and give it that kind of vibe and
Nice.
and things like that. So that was you're right. That was essentially kind of restarting that kind of thing. And I'm just trying to think, from a notes perspective or anything like that from the BBC. I think they kind of just loved what Jamie and Chris and myself and the team were kind of putting together. So it wasn't. It probably was very hard at the time, but it was a few years ago now. So I'm like, it was great. So that's that.
Yeah. So signing up for new projects, like you said, you have one coming up for projects like The Bay, where it's a new IP, things like His Dark Materials and Doctor Who, everything like that. Do you do any type of research or getting your head into it going into something, or is it just like, I'll go on set or whatever, meet with the directors and stuff, and then we'll go from there? Or do you do any pre-production for you specifically, I guess?
It just depends on what the project is, because one of the things coming up, hopefully, if it all comes to fruition, it's based on a book. So I've already read the book, and I've been sent the scripts for it as well. So I think my process is just to read the script. And something I'm trying to think over the years I really got into was reading the scripts. Like the thing that I'm starting in January, the first week back in January, it's kind of like a kid's sci-fi for Netflix, and it's like a bit post-apocalyptic, but it's that kind of from what I've been told from the director and having meetings with the producers, they are kind of going for that, I guess, English Stranger Things, or John Williams scored, or kind of Spielberg type thing. So already I've kind of go, okay, well, that's kind of the temp scores I'll go with, John Williams or things like that. But then when I read a script, I like to write down like sound effects as well that I kind of know how to, like, want to get hold of, or things like that. I'm always kind of like read it from like not from a sound point of view, but I will be like, I think I'll grab that sound effect. So just yesterday, reading the scripts again, I've just wrote like 4 pages of sound effects I want to grab and what have you. So that's kind of, I guess, is that my research? I guess that's kind of
that totally works.
My
for me.
process, and beauty of this job that I'm going on to, they've been shooting for months, and there's already rushes to look at. So even though my DOP and director are different, it will still kind of fit that world of what's been shot before in the other episodes. So I kind of got the benefit, the advantage kind of seeing what's already been shot and getting to know what the actors are like and the cast and the performances and things like that. So I've already kind of got an idea of what's coming my way. So it's just, I'll still edit, I'll still assemble my the way I feel it should go together, and then obviously in the process, the director will fine cut with me and kind of go, I think I was thinking this, or let's change that performance for that, let's change that take, and then and then the producers get involved and say, actually change it back, or change it to something totally different, or or they say it's great, which hopefully they will, and then you've got your network, which is Netflix in this case, who exec producers, they'll watch it and sign off on it, and then that's it. So it's kind of my thought process is kind of just get to read the scripts, and and then obviously, I mean, a lot of the times I work with the similar directors. I've worked with a few different directors, which is brilliant. So we've kind of got a shorthand, and they'll say, this is what I'm thinking for this project, and are you available? Do you want to do it? And what have you? So I kind of get fed a little bit like where they're going with it, and then obviously when you see the material, either it all changes or it's kind of what everyone was saying, and you kind of just get into it really and assemble and put it together.
Nice. So as we kind of like wind down on the episode already, is there anything that stands out for you throughout your entire career where like you have a favorite project, or even like a favorite episode or a favorite cut or anything like that stands out for you?
I don't know. I think what I've really enjoyed is like, every job's kind of brought about something different, like it's been a different genre. Like a lot of the things I've done in the middle on IMDb are very like crime thriller or police procedural kind of thing, but it's not always been that way. I've done a period drama, or I've done some kids stuff, and sci-fi and what have you. So it always feels fresh and it always feels like something different. And I have gone back to shows more than once. Like Vera, I've done 6 episodes, but each story is different, and the landscape of the locations are different, and what have you. So it's always quite fresh. So I think that's kind of something I kind of gravitate towards. Is like each job's different, and what have you. I'm trying to think. I think they've all just had their, they've all had their selling points.
Yeah.
And if it's probably people you work with, assistants, the production company, the cast, and things like that. But also just the edits can always be different, and and things like that.
Yeah, no, that's to me a perfect answer. That's a really good.
You. Thanks, Corey.
That's a good way to do it.
I don't usually talk this much. Just in a dark room by myself. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Don't worry, you don't have to talk anymore. We are.
Okay, thank you, Corey.
We are all good on that one. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can subscribe to Just Enter Podcast. Be sure to check out His Dark Materials Season 2. The whole season is already out. Be sure to check that out, as well as David's upcoming Netflix show whenever it lands. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.